Your ex is probably more confused than you think. And I'm going to tell you why that is, what's going on in their mind that can cause this, and what you can do about it. And remember, like I always say, none of this is 100%. These are general observations, but it's based on what I've seen in 2 decades in the relationship coaching service. Number 1 is confusion looks like and feels like rejection. So if your ex is confused, they are still going to act as though they are not interested at all in getting back together. It's going to look very similar because it's going to result in inactivity, or at least them not doing what you want them to do. They might not be reaching out. They might be, if you are reaching out to them, which I encourage you go into no contact if you haven't already, but they might be ignoring you, or they might be giving you really basic responses or telling you not to contact them, things like that. And that's less likely to be confusion if you're in contact with them. If you go into no contact, then a lot of what you think could be bad news or that they're not interested is actually confusion, because it's hard for them to get themselves off of square one because they don't know if they want to get back with you or not. And if you have to pick one or the other, you would go with confusion instead of certainty. And that's why no contact is very important. It can bring them into confusion. And I go over the stages that an ex typically goes through after a breakup. And confusion is what often gets them into the next stage. And you can watch that video. It's called Stages Your Ex Goes Through During No Contact. I'll link to it in the description below. But I can tell you that your ex is likely confused, and they aren't as certain about all this, about the breakup and living their life without you, as it can appear. Number 2, this depends on where you are as far as how much time has gone by since they broke up with you. But usually if a few weeks have passed, which allows them to get out of that relief stage, right after the breakup, they're glad they got it over with. They didn't want to hurt you. It's awkward. Nobody wants to break up with someone. And so when they do, there's sort of a dopamine rush. That's the reward chemical we get, and it feels good. It's when you do something that maybe is not a lot of fun and you get it over with. You cross it off your to-do list. And unfortunately, that's kind of how it feels in their mind, is that they had this big, ugly thing on their to-do list. They've probably been thinking about it for months, maybe weeks, but at least a long time. It's rarely, almost never overnight. It's almost something that always comes from a long period of thinking and debating in their mind. And sometimes they go back on it and say, no, I don't want to break up, or I'm just going to wait a few more weeks. I'm sure I'll feel different. And then that doesn't happen. Maybe the situation even gets worse because they're not communicating with you and actually telling you some of their frustrations. And eventually their attraction just falls so much they break up with you. And so they do feel relieved for a bit. But after that, it's very anticlimactic. There's some buyer's remorse or dumper's remorse or regret. And basically, with each of those stages, there is a feeling inside of them usually that says, I thought this would feel better. I thought I would feel better by now. And that's really frustrating because it makes them wonder if the decision was correct. And again, this is assuming your silence, that you are in no contact. Because if you are staying in contact with them, if you're begging and pleading and showing up and sending them gifts and things like that, they are not able to get out of that relief stage. They're not even able to get into it because they feel like they're still struggling to get away from you, to end the relationship, and to have the breakup. And so they're fighting and they want their freedom. And when you're fighting for what you think is freedom, you are like a blind bull. You are charging toward freedom, and everything else feels like shackles. And they will pull and fight like they're trapped in a cage until you stop. And then they think, here it is. Here's this wonderful world of being broken up with this person and being single again, and I'm going to feel great. And very rarely do they feel as good as they think they're going to, unless you were just an awful partner. You were selfish, yelled a lot, abusive, treated them like they were less than you, things like that. Then maybe they might be relieved. But assuming you were a good partner to them and treated them like you want to be treated, the golden rule, if you followed that and you were a good partner, then very likely they are thinking, this is not as good as I thought it would be. And that gives them a one-way ticket into the land of confusion. And usually when we are confused, we seek clarity. And who provides that clarity? In this case, it's you. And since you're silent, they're not getting the answers, which only stirs that pot of confusion even more as far as they are concerned, because they want something that shows either that you are still interested and you want to get back together with them, and that's a certainty, so that the confusion doesn't sting as much. It's a lot easier to be confused when there's no worry that the wrong answer could be painful. And so if you are there constantly, letting them feel like even if they continue with this breakup, they could still get you back, that's a lot less painful. As a matter of fact, there's almost no pain associated with that. You're the only one hurting if that's the case. But if you back off and you are silent, then the assumption is you are strong enough to move on because you're strong enough to stay away. And so that's where confusion can become even more severe for them. And as they look at you and you continue to remain silent, they're getting no answers. And so it just gets worse, more painful. They feel like there's a consequence that could mean their wrong decision is going to hurt. And they don't want to make the wrong decision and they don't want to hurt. And so they're seeking clarity. And your silence leaves them in confusion, which is what you want because they seek out the answer, which is you. So be silent so they want to know even more if this breakup was the right decision, because it matters more. It impacts them more. Get my reunion blueprint to help you get your ex back. It's a really powerful guide. I've made it just $7 so anybody can afford it. No one can say, I wish I could get my ex back, but I don't have $7, because if you really don't have $7 to spend to be educated on some really powerful ways to reattract your ex and to reunite with them, then you probably don't really care about them that much, because I know people have $7, and I did this because I wanted people to be able to afford it. We have to have a business here. We have multiple coaches on staff and bills to pay, so I can't just give away everything for free, just like you don't work for free either. But $7 is pretty darn close. The Reunion Blueprint at reunionblueprint.com. That's reunionblueprint.com. Now, if you're married, go to marriageradio.com/marriagehelp to get my free mini course on saving a marriage. That's marriageradio.com/marriagehelp if you're married. Number 3, oftentimes confusion is when they are caught between missing you and proving a point, because a lot of times people want to stick with their decision. Nobody wants to say, hey, I changed my mind again. I was wrong. It requires some humility. It requires requesting that you take them back. And so those are 2 negatives right there that nobody really wants to go through. But usually making them feel better about it only makes them less likely to do something about it, because they can just keep kicking it down the road. I'll put it off, I'll delay it, I'll wait till later, because clearly my ex still wants to be with me and I'm the one who broke up, and I want to make sure that I look good here. I don't want to look like I'm unstable and I'm in and I'm out and I'm yes, I'm no, I'm maybe. Nobody wants to look that way. People know how that looks. And so it can kind of be a rolling ball in their mind, because as they play that little game and time passes by with you being silent, they start to feel the pressure of this, that the more time that goes by, the further down the road you're getting, the more likely you are to move on. And so it puts urgency on their decision. Whereas if you are still contacting them, if you're still showing up, you're still letting them know that you're interested, you are literally enabling them to continue with the breakup without consequences, because you are still right there telling them, even if you change your mind, I'm right here and you are not going to lose me. It's just reassuring them that they can do no wrong going forward. And that is certainly not what you want to do. And you are training them how to treat you. So in the future, let's say you two do get back together. I see that a lot, especially when people get the reunion blueprint or they book a coaching session with me at myexbackcoach.com, and we get a real tailored custom plan based on their situation, and they get their ex back. One of the things that I'm really careful with people about is that they don't teach their ex that breaking up with them is a way to manipulate them, because then they will break up with you to punish you in the future, which is a really terrible thing to do, to threaten the relationship, to try to get a certain behavior, unless it's really bad behavior, like abuse. That is a very manipulative and low thing to do. And so you certainly don't want to teach them that the breakup will cause you to panic and beg and plead and give them all the power, because power can corrupt. and you don't want to corrupt your ex by giving them all the power. So silence speaks volumes and shows them that they can't use a breakup to manipulate you in the future. So when they are caught between missing you and proving a point, missing you usually will win out if you are silent, because they start to not just miss you, but now they think that could mean they want to get back together with you and they don't want to risk losing you. And the tables turn to where first you lost them, but now the risk seems to be that they could lose you. And that's the magic of confusion. And your silence only stirs that pot of confusion, and you definitely want to do that. Number 4, the more certain you are, the more confused they are. And so how can you show that you are moving on in a way that is not so obvious that it discourages them or looks fake, like you are trying to say, I'm moving on, which people who are moving on typically don't say that. They just do it. Now, I'm not saying that you should post pictures online of you and some romantic partner on a date or something like that. That usually blows up in your face, even though it sounds like it would be something that would work. And some people even recommend it. And yeah, if you just want vengeance and you just want to make a point, that's a great thing to do. But if you actually want the best chance of getting your ex back, you don't want to risk that they think it's pointless because now you're in a new relationship and that's exciting and you'll just reject them, and they don't want to look like an idiot and be rejected. Nobody likes that. It's not a good attraction method. Rejection is not a good attraction method, except in very rare circumstances and when it is very subtle. And the silence from you will actually look like certainty, because people who are not certain and who really want their ex back, typically without this knowledge, they panic and freak out and beg and plead. And your ex knows that. They've heard the stories. We all have. And so when you're not doing that, they tend to think that you are moving on to some degree. But without certainty from you, they have enough hope that you're not, that it will get them over that hump, that they will reach out and just check on you and see how you're doing and kind of ease into things, which is typically how it goes. It's usually not a message at first, I messed up, I want to get back together. They want to see if you'll even talk to them. But that's a smaller hump than reaching out and saying, will you please take me back? And so if there's enough hope, but there's also that confusion and that doubt and that urgency, that's enough to get them over that little hump to where they'll reach out. And then it's usually pretty easy because you two start talking, and we can get into more of this on a coaching session, or just get the reunion blueprint for $7 and it gets into this as well. But the more stable and consistent you are with your silence, the more confused they are. Number 5, when your ex is more confused than you think, is that they doubt their own judgment. And the reason they do that is because they broke up with you, now they want you back. And so obviously they are witnessing themselves over the course of a few weeks or maybe a few months where they are feeling two different things. And that's really frustrating. You stop trusting yourself. It's like, what am I going to feel tomorrow? And that's why it's even more important for you to be silent, because we want them to feel that loss, because that's how your value raises, and it makes them give more value and concern and even trust more that feeling that wants to be with you and misses you, which will magnify. It's like a balloon getting more and more air and blowing up larger and larger. The more you are silent, as the more time builds, and they realize there's a lot of pressure, and there could be that point where the balloon pops and you're gone forever. And they could have made the wrong decision and it's going to hurt so bad. And so the dread of that can make them go with basically something like this. Well, I've wanted to be with them for a long time, and then I didn't want to be with them for a while. Now I'm wanting to be with them again. So I know at least I can want to be with them, and I know that I'm missing them. And it's almost as though they are getting away from me, and I feel like I'm losing them. I got to get back together with them. And I'm oversimplifying it, but that is a place they can get to from your silence. And yes, nothing is guaranteed, but it happens a lot this way. And if you want the best chance of getting your ex back, I get on here a lot and tell you that it is no contact, it is silence. And there's other techniques, of course. It is a great starting point, and it's where you need to be. The complexity lies in when they start contacting you and things like that. And there are other situations where no contact is not the best, and I cover those in my courses as well. But if in doubt, or if you are sitting here and the question is, what should I do? Usually you can't go wrong with just silence when someone has left you, unless you are clearly in the wrong and you haven't apologized. Be sure to get my $7 reunion blueprint at reunionblueprint.com, reunionblueprint.com. Or if you're having marriage problems, go to marriageradio.com/marriagehelp. That's marriageradio.com/marriagehelp. Please share this video with somebody who's going through a breakup, who's going through heartbreak. They need it. If you like this video, please click the thumbs up. Subscribe to this channel so you can be notified when I have more videos like this. I'm on Instagram at RealCoachLee. And this has been Real Coach Lee. And as always, thank you for watching.